Hello and welcome to another Tuesday talk with Ruby Reese. This evening we're going to be talking about, I suppose, quite a stressful time, but also a really nice time in dog ownership. The first month of owning a puppy and bringing them home. I'll shortly be joined by Ciara from Hounds Cork to talk this through. Ciara's been working with this topic quite intensively over the last couple of years, so I'm really looking forward to that. I'm just going to shortly. Hello, Ciara.
Hi,
Welcome. How are you
I'm
doing?
good. Thanks. How are you, Killian?
Very well, thank you. Would you do me the pleasure of introducing yourself for everyone?
Yeah, thanks so much. I am Ciara Sill from Silly Hounds Dog Training, based here in Cork, and run all sorts of training, but primarily focused on puppies and everything puppy life.
Very good. Brilliant. Great to have you on. And I suppose by way of introduction of myself, I'm Killian from Ruby Reese. We set up our local Cork brand, Ruby Reese, just over a year ago and have a range of natural treats, a shampoo and conditioner for home grooming, and we also have nutritional supplements to keep your little fur babies happy and healthy. So before we launch into the topic, it's important with this format to always mention that we will be making some generalizations. We want to keep this, chatty and informal. So, in by way of making generalizations, we won't always necessarily be talking about you, your dog, or your own situation. So, if you do have any concerns while listening in, please do consider contacting a certified professional. So let's get on to the fun part, the puppies.
Yes.
I suppose diving straight into it, you know, before a puppy comes home, when you think about the days leading up and the anticipation of a puppy joining the home, are there any thoughts that immediately spring to mind and any tips or ideas that you might like to share with people in preparing for that time?
Yeah. And that's an absolutely fantastic starting point because I think most people, when they plan to get a puppy, they at least do maybe a little bit of research, or they kind of do something in anticipation. They don't just come home with a dog and not really think too much about it, although I have heard of people doing that. But in general, if you are planning on bringing a puppy into your home, first of all, you're going to make sure you want to have somewhere that they can sleep. You want to make sure you've got some toys, some things for them to chew on. Maybe I highly recommend having a playpen around their crate or their bed. And maybe if you're going down the route of using puppy pads, maybe some of those, water bowl, maybe I probably would actually hold off getting a lead or a collar and harness until you actually get them, because you don't know how big they're small they're going to be, and really you want to kind of make sure that they've got the best fitting equipment when they do have it. So making sure you first of all, I think, also do a bit of research on the breed that you're getting. Every breed that exists today has been bred for a specific purpose. So we need to know why our dog is doing certain behaviors. And a lot of that can be down to genetic inherited behaviors or skills that they have, brought from many, many years ago that they aren't used for now. So researching what type of dog you're actually getting, not just because it's cute and adorable, because I mean, let's face it, all puppies are cute and adorable, really. But yeah, making sure that you do a little bit of research. Some of my favorite absolute favorite clients call to me and say, Ciara, we're getting a puppy. Can you just come and do a session with us beforehand, just to get everyone in the household ready? Especially if you've got kids, you need to learn how to manage the kids around the puppy. Essentially, you're bringing this tiny little creature into your home and you need to be set up for success.
Definitely. And I suppose even just thinking about puppy safing your home as well, like think about the size that the puppy might be, but even maybe double that height, because they can obviously jump up on their back legs and reach things. So you might be looking at, maybe protecting cables and, moving
Shoes.
expensive ornaments. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe nice and lovely rugs that you might have, if you don't want them to have any accidents on them, just it's a temporary measure really for some of them. You don't want to leave your shoes lying around, or toys that could potentially be chewed up or anything like that. So yeah, that's a really good point, puppy proofing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was something that we thought a lot about. We thought cables were going to be more of a problem than they were. Ruby did not care at all about chewing on cables. So that was a concern that we needlessly had, but at least we thought about it.
Yeah.
And I suppose moving then into the first couple of days, or even the first hours, what's important to think about then when bringing a puppy home. How, I suppose for me, how do you want that puppy to feel is probably the most important thing, right?
Yeah, and if you think about it, they're like probably so nervous, scared, don't know what's happening to their life. They've gone from this environment that's all they've known with their mother and their litter mates and things like that. And then they've met strangers. They've either been, in a car journey for a while. They've probably been, transported some way to your house. And now all of a sudden they're in this whole new environment, and it can just be quite overwhelming. Even the most kind of confident puppies would find that quite alarming. So I would first take them out for a toilet break, let them have a little putter in the garden or in the space where you want them to be going to the toilet, hopefully catch one of the wheeze. If they've been confined or in your car for quite a while you're driving back from wherever you've got your puppy from, the chances are they probably do need a toilet break. So let them have a little toilet break. And then I would actually put them in their bed, in their crate, and just leave them have a bit of a sleep, because that's quite, it's let them kind of become, I guess, a bit more sort of used to the environment without the pressure of everyone trying to poke and prod and pick them up and put them down. And because when you get a puppy, the first thing you want to do is just cuddle it and pat it, and that can actually be quite intimidating for this dog who's just had their whole world pulled up from underneath them into a whole new place. So I'd say, yeah, just give them a bit of time to kind of get used to the environment. Make sure you've got toys around and things like that if they want to play, and yeah, just kind of watch them from afar. You will have them for the rest of your life, or the rest of their life, hopefully. So you've loads of time to be giving them cuddles and pats and treats and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, let them have a little bit of rest beforehand.
Exactly. That sounds brilliant. And you mentioned a couple of things, so place to sleep and crates. So are we fans of crate training, or are we not?
It's a huge debate, and it depends who you ask, really. But I personally, I love crates and I love crate training because I think it's quite a nice controlled environment. Puppies, I kind of liken it to like a toddler in a pool. If you can't watch them like they're a toddler in a pool, then they kind of need to be somewhere safe, and they need to be somewhere where they're not going to chew your cables, or they're not going to pee everywhere. They're not going to go to the toilet. So I really like crates because it gives your dog a sense of space, that this is my space. Nothing's bad's going to happen to me while I'm in here. Obviously, we can go down the chat of how to properly train them into loving the crate, because that's what we want it to be, a safe space. So dogs actually, as puppies, they are quite afraid of big open spaces. So if they come into this, this new house, and they're looking around thinking, oh, wow, they probably will go and hide in a corner or under a chair or something like that if they aren't sort of placed into the right environment. So I love a crate for that reason. It really, really, really helps with toilet training, rather than having to, just let your dog have loads of freedom and then you can't actually kind of rein it back in. So I love crates. You don't have to use them for your puppy's entire life, but I actually find them really, really beneficial, especially in the first sort of month to 2 months, even 3 months of their life with you.
Yeah, and I think it's actually an interesting topic, and it's a good starting place for people. Like, how do we start crate training? Are we looking for some sort of but I mean, a crate can be anything, right? It's any contraption that's basically going to contain your puppy. But are we looking for something that has a side opening so that they're freely able to walk in and out at first to get used to it? Or
yeah, I mean, I would like the crates that I sort of use or recommend, a lot of those mesh ones that have 2 doors. So they've got one at the front and one at the side. I actually like closing them in to begin with, not for, or while I'm doing some crate training, not forever, or not for even 10 minutes, but even just putting them in there, throwing a couple of treats in, and then opening the door. So you're closing them in and you're opening the door, you're closing it. And so they're kind of getting used to that confinement without it being too overwhelming. A lot of times I also recommend throwing like an old blanket or an old towel over it, so it kind of becomes like a den and it's cozy. Like you'll never see wild dogs, or you'll never see stray dogs kind of, out in the open just lying really, when they're having a proper sleep. They'll be kind of tucked away in a little nook or a little corner or a little den. So we kind of want that to be the same sort of principle, that they've got a little somewhere that they can go that's cozy. It's nice, got a comfortable bed in it, and it's not huge, so they can't get up and walk to the other side of it. It's kind of like the same, almost a little bit bigger than their body size, and they can kind of get up, shift their body weight and turn around, but they're not kind of walking halfway, taking a few steps to the other side of the crate, if that makes any sense.
Totally, yeah. I think we did this with Ruby, and she loved it at the beginning. We often left it open during the day, and like the side, so that she could use it as kind of a refuge, like you say, for her naps. And then at night time, then we closed it off, so that she'd have to let us know that she needed to go outside for a toilet break. And I suppose that's a really good segue into potty training, toilet training topic, because it's one of the biggest concerns we all have. I mean, especially if you're getting a puppy and you don't have small kids, you're not used to random messes around the place. So no matter what they're, you're just used to kind of adult human behavior. So I think it's one of the big concerns that people have. So how do we deal with potty training in a logical way?
Yeah, and you know what, could even be a topic on its own. Really, it's quite a nice topic. And yeah, at an age, like, I'm hoping most people are getting their puppies sort of between 8 and 10 weeks of age. So realistically, a puppy can only hold its bladder for an hour per month of age. So if you're getting an 8-week or a 10-week-old puppy, 2 hours is pretty much the maximum time that they can actually hold their bladder. So, but during that time, if they have a drink, if they have a big play session, if they have a meal, if they wake up from a nap, they'll need to go to the toilet again. So you might think, oh, I've got 2 hours or 3 hours. But in reality, your dog could do 3 out of those 4 things and still need to go to the toilet. So how I deal with toilet training, and the best way that sort of happened, is to build a routine, or to build a kind of a pattern. So you are like, to be honest with you, it's I'm not going to lie, it's going to be awful for the first couple of weeks, because you'll have some accidents, hopefully not, but hope you'll have a couple of accidents, I'm sure. And you want to just be taking your dog out as regularly as possible. So, every hour out for a toilet break. And usually I try to say, go to the same sort of places where they've been in the backyard, just so that they kind of have that familiarity of, it smells like the toilet here, okay, I'll go to the toilet. And obviously, if you catch them going outside, have the biggest party ever. Treats if you got them on you, Ruby Reese treats, treats if you got them on you, but don't underestimate the power of just, oh my God, you're amazing. Like, go absolutely nuts when they finish their toilets outside, so that they just get this huge boost of confidence for just doing a wee. You're like, wow, this is great. Yeah. Now, if they have an accident on the inside, I kind of put it down to, whoops, we missed it. We should have, taken them out a bit more, and maybe try and take note of when was the last time you took them out, and kind of keep a bit of a schedule going. The easiest way I find to do it is actually to set a timer on your phone. So if they've gone to the toilet at 10 a.m., just set a timer on your phone for an hour and a half time. You don't have to think about it, or an hour's time. And then when that alarm clock goes off, you just take your puppy out. But if you do catch them in the act of going to the toilet, and you yell at them, or you shove their nose in it, or, you kind of make it a bit more of a negative experience for them, chances are they probably will become a bit nervous of you or around you when they do need to go to the toilet. So personally, I would just say, look, we've just mistimed that, whoops. You can maybe try and make some noise, like kind of startle them with your hand, or just kind of beat on the side or whatever, but it's really, it's done. Do you know what I mean? And if you're kind of yelling at your puppy and then you're dragging them outside, like, okay, come on, go to the toilet now, then they're going to remember, the last time I went to the toilet, you were really angry and you were standing next to me, so I'm not going to go. And they might, start hiding their accidents or their poos in random places of the house, which is not what you want. No, at all.
And I suppose like setting your puppy or setting your dog up for success has so much to do with dealing with your dog in the first place, no matter what life stage they're in. So this is one of the things that's been recurring through loads of these talks is give your dog the opportunity to succeed, and there's a good chance they will.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Give them all those opportunities to go outside, and it'll reduce over time. And you did mention earlier the controversial topic of the puppy pads. So are we for these? Are we against these? There's a lot of controversy there, and I know everyone's going to have a different opinion anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what, the funniest thing really is if you put 3 trainers in a room together, then 2 of them will agree that the other one's wrong. So everyone has a different opinion about it, which is completely normal. I personally find, like, so every situation, I guess, or every housing situation is different. If you don't particularly have a huge outdoor area, or if you've only got a small, maybe a balcony, or maybe if you don't even have an outdoor space, if you're an apartment block, you need to have somewhere that the dog can go to the toilet inside, or let's say you're going to be out for a few hours, you have to go to work, whatever, you need to give your dog that opportunity to go somewhere that's more appropriate rather than just going, near their crate or near their bed or something like that. So in those situations, I would say definitely using puppy pads. But personally, I find them kind of like a middle step. So if you have them all around the house, which most people do, and they tend to go on the puppy pads, and then you slowly move them towards the door, and then you kind of have to get rid of them altogether. Like, I just think that's just an extra step I'd rather not do. I would rather just, do a couple of weeks of back and forth, then have to take that next step of removing the puppy pads 100%. And I mean, most people that I speak to about puppy pads, most clients, they say, well, my dog just ate them. The dog just ripped them up and thought they were the best party treat that they've ever gotten, and they didn't actually use them for toileting. So that's my opinion, to be honest. And I find that rather than using the puppy pads in the house, you could certainly even have one outside as that kind of marker point, just to give yourself a visual cue or give someone else a cue of where the dog, where to go. But yeah, I think they're hit and miss.
It could work for some situations, but like you say, it was exactly our experience as well. We kind of tried them out at the beginning, and they turned into a plaything immediately, so it didn't fulfill its purpose at all. And so I suppose another huge topic then is socialization. So how soon are we supposed to be socializing our dogs? What does socialization even mean when we're talking about puppies? And do we jump straight into it, or is there an easing in process? Let's talk socialization.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? This is probably one of my favorite topics to talk about with puppies, because it is probably the most crucial or most important thing that you could do with your puppy, to be honest. Now, socialization, I feel that the word socialization has gotten a bit of a misnomer, really, because a lot of people will sort of think, oh, I have to let my dog socialize to every single dog that they see, or let their dog play with every single dog, or have that really big drive to just playing with other dogs. Whereas socialization, really, in the dog's mind, is about getting them used to their environment, because dogs in your life, on the streets, at the parks, at places that you go, they'll come and go. But really, what we need is your dog to be confident, your dog to walk down the street, a truck goes past, and they don't think, oh, there's a truck, and they lose their marbles. Or, someone with a strimmer walks past, strimming the hedge, they don't freak out and lose their mind with that. So socialization is really, I guess, about adapting or teaching your dog how to be really comfortable in the environment that they're in. And the places that you want to take your dog. If you want to take your dog to the beach, if you want to take them to the forest, if you want to take them down into town, if you want to take them anywhere, they have to be able to sort of be exposed to that in a controlled way or a controlled manner. Now, the other thing you might be asking me or thinking about in a moment is like, but what about their vaccinations? They have to, there's so much information about, should we wait until our dogs are fully vaccinated, or what can we do? Or, because the risk of them contracting a potentially deadly virus is relatively high. Some areas can be relatively high in parvovirus, which is the main one, I guess, that most people are aware of. But some areas don't really have that high of a risk. So it's about chatting to your vet and asking them, what is the risk around this area? Is it quite a high risk? Has there been a lot of parvo in recent times? Or, but at the same time, we have to still socialize our puppy to the environment. So you could easily just take your puppy in in the car for a ride and go down to the supermarket and just sit there and watch people go past. With your dog, they're sitting there going, oh, there's people with trolleys. Oh, there's people with buggies. There's people with baskets. There's all these different noises and sounds. And what socialization really kind of, I guess, the bones of it is that they become neutral to the environment. They just think, oh yeah, there's a person. Oh yeah, there's something else. There's just things that they don't even sort of become aware of. And if so, in sort of puppy development, between 0 when they're born, but 8 to 16 weeks is considered the critical socialization point or period where we have to show them as much as we can. Anything after that, well, all the learning that they do in that time is permanent. So if you wait until your puppy's got their last vaccination, and that's sort of 15 or 16 weeks, well, then you've got a week to try and fit in everything or cram it all in. Yeah. And it's quite overwhelming for you, for the puppy, and you might find then your dog can be a bit nervous in new situations because they don't necessarily feel comfortable. Imagine if you lived most of your life inside your house and then someone opened the door and said, by the way, there's a whole world out there. You'd be like, what? didn't know that happened. Didn't know that existed.
I suppose there's a bit of building up you need to do as well, because it would be a bit unrealistic to say, okay, I want my puppy to be able to sit with me outside a cafe for an hour while I have a chat with my friends. That's fine, but there's a couple of steps before you might get there, and might be worthwhile building that up over time and expecting maybe 3 minutes first, and then building it up bit by
small
bit.
Steps. yeah, exactly. Rather than going headfirst into the marina market on a Saturday morning, that's so overwhelming for a 10-week-old puppy or any week really. That can be so loud, and the smells of all the food and everything. But you could certainly go there on a weekday morning if you could, or even later in the evening and walk around the outside. So I kind of keep general rule of thumb is like 5 minutes per month of age. That's really how long your outing should be. So if your puppy's 12 weeks old, they only really need 15 minutes of your adventure, and that's plenty of time for them to kind of take in information. Anything after that, they kind of, I guess, their brain fills up and they can't really take in any new information, and then they're just a tired puppy who kind of just overloaded. Exactly.
Yeah. And then I suppose I know vaccines also play a role in this, but when should training begin? And this includes group training and organized training as well as training at home, obviously.
Yeah, well, I to be honest, I recommend from day one. From the moment your puppy comes into your house, they're learning so much. They're learning so much about you, your routine, the house, what their behaviors mean. And puppies are very quick to pick up habits. They're very quick to pick up different things. So we want to make sure we manage their environment as much as possible. If you have a new puppy and to begin with, they're just running up and down the stairs, without any supervision, that's a bit dangerous, especially if they're a small breed. But if they're running up and down the stairs, they could injure themselves, but also they get used to that. I can just do that. Whereas, you could simply manage that by having a baby gate for the first few months, and your dog doesn't ever practice going up the stairs. And so managing their environment is really, really probably the easiest thing you could do without having to do too much effort. It's so much easier to have kind of like a tighter, small environment and loosen the strings, or loosen the kind of the space that they have, rather than let's start off free rein. They're just going to the toilet everywhere. They're chewing anything they see. They're biting anything they see, and then trying to rein it back in. It's a lot harder to do it that way.
Yeah. And then I suppose a lot of people end up with this puppy that they've been waiting for so long and really looking forward to, and then they realize that they have other things to do in their life, so they want to say, oh, how do I start leaving the puppy alone? Separation anxiety is an unfortunate word that comes up quite a bit. Yeah. How do we deal with getting a puppy used to being alone and maybe dealing with some of that separation anxiety, maybe even before it kind of kicks in?
Yeah, and that's really, really, really important part of developing your puppy. You want them to be confident. You want them to be able to sort of stay on their own without too much of a stress. So you know, when if you liken it to sort of like a toddler or a baby, you know, we always play those games like peekaboo with your toddler, and it's kind of the same thing. Our dogs or puppies need to learn kind of like object permanence, so that we go out of the room and we come back, we go out of the room and we come back, and it's like we're starting to leave them for very short amounts of time, that they're kind of able to cope with that. They might kind of look around, go, oh, I'm on my own, you know, oh, they're back. But at the same time, if you have a dog who's free roaming around the house, chances are they will follow you everywhere, even to the bathroom. They will be really, really needy. They'll want, so we need to set them up that they can spend time on their own from the beginning. Now, if your dog has true or you know, true separation anxiety, that's actually a genetic trait that, you know, even you could do everything by the book and still find that your dog has separation anxiety, at which point I'd still recommend, you know, getting onto a certified trainer for that, because it can be quite restricting for your life if you're, you know, if you're not able to go to the shops, or you're not able to go to work, or you have to find someone to sit with a dog while you're going out for the evening or something like that. So starting with really sort of small breaks, like I'm talking a couple of seconds and then coming back in, couple of seconds and coming back in, and building it up slowly and gradually to a couple of minutes and then coming back in, and kind of not placing too much on, okay, bye, we're going, bye, you know, making this big deal about when you're leaving, and the same on the other side when you're coming back. I'm back, oh look, and every, you know, when we come home from work or life, or anyway, even just bringing the bins in, you know, your dog is so happy to see you. They're like, oh my gosh, you're back. And if you're creating this huge excitement about your return, and, you know, they're just going, oh, they're like kind of all goofy and, you know, getting really, really excited, you know, that's going to make them feel even worse when they're alone, because that feel good hormone is just completely depleted, because they're like, the only thing that makes me feel good is your presence. And so we want our greetings to be relatively, oh, I'm back, how are you, you know, rather than, oh my god,
Yeah,
huge so, over the top greetings.
So taking some of that energy out of it, turning it from a high energy kind of situation down to more like a normality, and slowly but surely building it up. And I guess that's also what you're looking at, even with dogs that are really really suffering with this. Then later on in life is kind of slowly but surely building their confidence over time.
Yeah, to a point where they can manage, like I can deal okay with this threshold. You know, it might, to begin with, it might be only a couple of seconds, but with enough repetitions, we can build that up to 10 seconds, maybe 20 seconds, then a minute, you know, and we can build it up in a stage that your dog can cope with, rather than having to, you know, having to just go from 0 to 25 minutes. And they're like, what? My whole world has just disappeared.
Yeah, definitely. And then we have another topic that a lot of people ask about as well, is biting, nipping, mouthing, all of these lovely terms. But we all know the puppies do it. We don't want our puppies doing it. Is this a bad behavior? Why do they do it? And how can we help them to maybe be a little bit more gentler in their play?
Yeah, you know, that is probably the number one thing that people ask me at puppy school, puppy training, puppy private, like everything. It's like the dog is biting, and they're biting nonstop, and they are a nightmare. And I think you can kind of, when you envision getting a puppy, you think, oh, they're going to bite. That's expected. But I think the level at which a puppy bites is so different to what anyone ever really experiences. And especially if people have got an older dog and they kind of forget what the chaos of the puppy time was like. So again, as I said, from the moment your puppy gets in, they're kind of exploring their new environment. So they don't have hands like we do. So they use their mouth to experience the world. So they'll put their mouth on everything just to see what happens. What happens when I bite this? What happens when I bite that? And so if they're getting a really, really massive reaction, because let's say they bite your foot or your hand and you go, oh my God, no, stop. And they're like, oh, that was a fun game. You know, I had such a good time there. Everyone got all excited and there was this huge adventure. Then you might think that they're going to do, okay, I'm a bit bored now, I'm going to do that game again. And so they'll come up to your feet or your toes. But at the same time, if they see something, you've got a nice flowy dressing gown, oh, that just looks like a big toy, a big fluffy bunny. So I'm going to chase after that and bite onto that. So there's a couple of things that that you can certainly do. One is making sure that your puppy has a lot of play outlets, like sort of toys. And when I say toys, I mean nice, decent toys, rather than just small sort of things. The toys that I actually have one here as a point of reference. These are one of my, this is quite a long toy. So if my puppy was biting on the end of here, I'm all the way over here holding this side. So the puppy's so much further away from my hand than it is. It's still getting a nice kind of bite, and we can have a bit of a game of tug of war, but they're so much further away from my hand. The other thing is, make sure your toys are nice and soft, because they are teething at the moment, and so we'll talk about teething just shortly, but they want something that they can bite onto easily, rather than kind of hard plasticky type toys. They can't really get a proper grip, which is often why they go for your sleeves or your socks or your slippers or something like that, because they're nice and soft and they can get a really good grip. So making sure that you've got lots of toys, and even for the first maybe couple of weeks while you have your new puppy, always have a toy on you, especially if there's children around. Just have one in your pocket, have one as soon as you come into the kitchen, grab a toy, so that if your puppy's approaching, oh, here you go, here's a little thing, rather than them jumping on your feet. Being proactive rather than reactive to their biting will be so much more beneficial for them. But at the same time, the other thing I just wanted to touch on is, if your puppy is biting incessantly, you've tried everything, you're standing still. Like, you can't ignore it when a puppy is biting on your foot, because it's Mother Nature's cruelest tricks. I think they said, let's make this beautiful little baby animal and give them like daggers for teeth.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
if someone says to you, "Oh, just ignore it. It's going to go." What, you can't, because they're chewing on your foot. It's sore.
Yeah.
And it's maybe piercing your skin or hurting, whatever. But so making sure that you're being a bit more proactive with that. Now, the other thing is, puppies, and sometimes people get a bit of a shock when they hear this, puppies should be getting at least 18 hours of sleep a day. So that's out of your 24 hours. That's a lot of sleep time and downtime that they need to have. If they're not getting that much, the chances are they'll be really, really bitey, really annoying, and really persistent, and kind of grumpy and grouchy and growly, and just kind of fed up with you and the family, and don't know what's going on. And so you might find your dog is just almost like a completely different dog, because they are actually just really, really overtired, and they don't know to take themselves off for a sleep. So making sure that your puppy is getting enough rest throughout the day. And that also then helps with, putting them in that crate or that safe space where they can go to, giving them some independence from you, so they're not sleeping right next to you, cuddling up, nice and close on the couch or something like that, that they're off doing their own thing, and they've got that structure of, okay, I go for my nap, and then I come out, we have a bit of a play, they're kind of free to roam around the garden, go to the toilet, and then, a little bit of an outing, they come back, they have another sleep again. So sleep, don't underestimate the power of good sleep routine.
Definitely, yeah. And I suppose the routine is what I'm hearing out of what you're saying as well, kind of like, say you play, then you go out to the toilet, and then you're going to your crate for a little nap. And that, if a dog gets used to, I think a puppy learns that very, very quickly. You do it 3 or 4 times, and they realize, oh, this is how we live.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and life becomes predictable for them. They kind of know, okay, they must be getting up soon, so it's time to go to the toilet, and they kind of almost can predict our routine quicker than we can too. You know what I mean? They're very quick at doing that. They know the difference between when you put on your walking shoes versus your gym shoes. Like, they can tell, they're just going out in sandals, I'm not going. They're very, very quick to pick up those little nuances of your own human behavior.
Definitely, yeah. And you mentioned teething as well, so I'm guessing this could make puppies a little bit restless and a little bit grumpy and bitey as well. So, what age do we expect teething kind of to begin in puppies, and how do we deal with that?
Yeah, so every puppy is different. So the kind of like the general rule of thumb is it can start from about 10 weeks, kind of up to about 14. Like, that's generally the window, and that's quite a big window. So every puppy is different when they do start to develop, the teething. But you can really tell when they are starting, because they get a bit more gnawy. That's not a word, but I just made it up. So they'll start chewing on stuff, and they'll be like just trying to gnaw on things, because they are really, really struggling with the feeling of their teeth falling out and the adult teeth coming down, or the next teeth coming down. So while they're in that phase, they will be extra bitey, but they'll also need stuff to kind of soothe that irritation or soothe that gums. So that's when I would say increase massively the things that they can chew, which are edible. So things like a carrot, that they can sit and they can gnaw on, or you can get some really, really nice kind of toys and treats from the pet shops, like those kind of yak milk bars that they can sit and gnaw on, maybe something like a cow's ear, something that's not too heavy, like I wouldn't give them a massive bone or anything. Their teeth are too bristled for that at the moment, but just something that's kind of nice that they can get that gnaw at, and they can kind of get to the back of the mouth where they can really, really chew and get that kind of like nice relaxation feeling going. Because if they don't have an outlet for that, you'll know that they'll do it on your shoes, they'll chew your furniture, they'll chew your skirting boards, or wherever they can get their teeth stuck into for that. And they're just trying to find some solution to their pain that they're in, so we have to give them an appropriate outlet for it.
Definitely, and you showed a rope toy earlier as well. Like I suppose rope is probably a good, like real rope is probably a good opportunity. I can imagine different textures and things like that could be good to give them opportunities to not eat up your shit.
And it's a really good way to help settle them in their crate. You pop them into your crate, give them something nice to chew on. They're having a good time chewing, they're gnawing, and then they'll have a little bit of a rest as well and have a bit of downtime. So then when they wake up, they're not feeling as uncomfortable as they will after that. So don't underestimate the power of chewing. It is really, really beneficial for puppies to keep them busy while you're cooking dinner or something like that, or just give them something to do that doesn't require you to watch their every movement at that time. Is a useful tool for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to keep you too much longer now, but I wanted to also ask about when puppies do meet each other, they tend to not know when to stop playing. So how do people know, especially if you're meeting up with someone else that also has a young puppy, it might be your first puppies, how do you know when to stand, to jump in and break something up when when you think it might be getting too much? How much play is too much play?
I mean, I'm sure as humans, we probably go to the park for the whole day if we could when we were kids, and puppies, are very, very similar in that sort of age. And I often say at puppy school that we run with a group of small puppies that they, puppies playing together, two young dogs playing together is probably one of the worst things that you could see, because they don't know how to play with each other. They're kind of just trying stuff, and they're just trying to see what happens when I jump on your head, what happens when I bite your tail, or what, and they're kind of testing out what happens. And so the reactions of each of the puppies will kind of either dictate whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And they also don't really understand each other's body language signals either. So the best thing if you do have a puppy is maybe meet up with someone who has an older dog who's a bit, quite level-headed and well socialized, and it's kind of will tell the puppy off if they're biting too hard, or if they're kind of, and that older dog should be allowed to say, hey, knock it off, you're biting too hard, or you're jumping, you're getting too much, because the puppy needs to learn that I can't just play at level 10 all day long. So if you do have a group of young dogs playing, it's important to kind of, if you see them, like maybe one of the dogs is just getting pounced on all the time, or one of the dogs is kind of trying to get away and is looking around for an exit spot or something, or trying to get low to the ground, hold the one that's kind of doing the jumping back for a couple of seconds. Like I'm talking 2 or 3 seconds, and see what happens. Does the other dog go off and sniff something and do something else? In that case, it wasn't really enjoying that interaction. Whereas if the other dog comes back and is just like, hey, come on, I was enjoying that, we were playing, you can let them have a little bit of a rough and tumble after that, and kind of let them have a bit of a play. But I generally say you don't really need your interactions to be going on for 20 minutes, 45 minutes. That's way too much for a puppy. But a couple of minutes of, lots of chasey play, rough and tumble, followed by a bit of sniffing in the grass. And the best way to do that, I find, is just separate them, hold them separate from each other, throw a couple of treats on the grass and let them have a bit of a sniff. That kind of brings them back down, and then you can let them have another play again. And then I'd maybe do that 3 or 4 times and then call it a day. You don't want it to be going on for ages. And that's the beauty of the crate. You could bring your crate to your friend's house and say, right, pop into your crate, blanket over it. It's kind of time to unwind and kind of chill out after that. So yeah, it's definitely something that you need to be on top of, because if your dog is the one getting hammered the whole time, it's just going to, lead to your dog being feeling defenseless and helpless, and maybe not enjoying the company of other dogs, in later life.
Definitely. Yeah, no, it's definitely food for thought. And I suppose, like, just to summarize everything, it sounds like, set your dog up for success is one of the major things. Build routines where they're going to be successful. Break things down into little manageable pieces for their little minds, little growing minds. And I suppose have fun with it, isn't it?
Yeah, enjoy
things.
the ride as it happens, and the other thing is, a lot of people will try to focus really heavily on training at the beginning. They'll try to, from the day that they get the puppy in, they'll be teaching them how to sit, how to lie down, and like those things are great and they're important, but there's so many other things to be doing and focusing on before your puppy before focusing on that. I want your puppy to be confident. I want them to be resilient. I want them to be able to go into a room and be like, yeah, okay, this is cool. I don't know anyone here, but I'm fine. Rather than just being like, oh, what's that noise? And kind of like afraid of their own shadow almost. So a resilient, confident puppy is what we want, rather than someone who's just a bit sort of, nervous or shy, and we have to build that up. And each puppy is completely different too. So we have to make sure that if you're having a puppy that has, maybe even a little bit of nervousness or something like that, just contact the trainer straight away, because the worst thing you can do is YouTube it. It's like if you're feeling unwell and you YouTube what's wrong with you. There's so much information. It's so confusing. So just contact someone who is, sort of in the know about puppy development, and get them to give you some pointers and some help, because invest in your puppies while they're young, and you'll have a nice dog for the rest of your life. Whereas if you're trying to wait until your dog's 3 or 4 and they've been practicing these behaviors, it's a lot harder to change, than it is if we set them up for success.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's a lot of days of routine building in 2 or 3 years.
Exactly. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, cool.
Ciara, thank you so much for coming on and talking about such an amazing topic. I would talk about puppies, I think, for the rest of my life, and we still wouldn't be done.
Me too. I think I could talk for a few hours and it would still have more to say on it. So it is a never ending topic.
Definitely. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing. I think we only scratched the surface, but sharing so much knowledge at the same time was brilliant. If any of you listening in are interested in giving Ciara a follow, you can follow her on Instagram at Silly Hounds Cork, I think it is.
Yeah, that's it.
And if anyone's interested in following us, we're at Ruby Reese Official. Thank you so much once again, Ciara. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, you too. And thank you so much for doing these talks as well. I find them, I learn every single week I listen in, so I just love them. So yeah, thank you so much for putting this together. I know it takes time out of your day as well, Cillian, so really appreciate it.
Thank you. No, I appreciate them so much as well. I'm learning every single week, and it's really, really fantastic. So thanks a million for joining, and looking forward to speaking with you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.